My name's Rachel Lawson, and this is how I transformed a crumbling Chicago branding agency into a $220 million tech empire, only to have it stolen from me on my wedding day. But that betrayal? It lit a fire that helped me build something even bigger. I grew up in a small apartment in the Ravenswood neighborhood, the kind with thin walls and creaky floors. While other kids were out riding bikes or glued to cartoons, I was happiest in front of a computer screen, teaching myself to code. And my mom, Linda, always said she saw something special in me, some kind of spark. She did everything she could to keep that light burning. But cancer took her from me when I was 14, and nothing was the same after that. She'd married Tom Lawson 4 years earlier, so I ended up with a stepdad and a new family I never quite fit into. Tom ran Lawson Creative, a marketing agency stuck in the AOL era, flashy on the outside, but falling apart underneath. Tom had a soft spot the size of Texas for his daughter, Camille. She could mess up 10 Ways to Sunday, failed TikTok brands, soap businesses that fizzled out, but he still acted like she walked on water. Me? I was the odd one out, the one always grinding, always proving myself at AT22, fresh out of Caltech. I didn't come back to Chicago out of some sentimental pull. I came to rescue that outdated agency before it flatlined completely. Lawson Creative was bleeding money and living in the past. But I had a plan. I'd been building this AI-powered analytics platform since my junior year. It could track consumer patterns and laser-target digital campaigns. I poured everything into it, late nights, early mornings, energy drinks, the whole deal. Slowly, we turned Lawson Creative from an irrelevant relic into a real tech player. Soon, big names like Peet's Coffee and Target were on board. By 30, I'd grown the company into a $200 million beast. But no matter what I accomplished, Tom never really saw me. I was still just Linda's daughter, not part of his family. Meanwhile, Camille, who was 28 by then, floated along on his praise without lifting a damn finger. My fiancé, Noah, he's a high school teacher with a calm presence and a big heart, kept me grounded. He reminded me there was more to life than work and algorithms. As our wedding day got closer, I started to let myself feel hopeful. Just one day to breathe. One day to celebrate love instead of clawing my way through life. We chose a lakeside venue, strung with warm lights. The air buzzed with laughter and the scent of gardenias. I felt radiant in my ivory dress, fingers laced with Noah's. For once, I let myself believe I could just be happy. Then Tom stood up for his toast. I braced myself for the usual lukewarm praise, but instead, his words knocked the air out of me. "This isn't just about Rachel and Noah," he said, raising his glass. "It's also the beginning of a new era at Lawson Creative. I'm thrilled to announce Camille as our new CEO." Time froze. Camille, who hadn't set foot in the office in years, grinned beside him like she'd just won an Oscar. You could feel the shift in the room. Guests glanced around, whispering like wind through dry leaves. I waited for Tom to laugh, to say he was kidding. But he just smiled wider. Then, as if that wasn't humiliating enough, he walked over, pulled a wrinkled 20 from his suit pocket, and pressed it into my hand. "This is what you're worth, Rachel," he said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Camille snorted, her laugh smug and slicing through the stunned silence. All eyes were on me, some shocked, some pitying, some just plain curious. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I folded the bill, tucked it into my clutch, looked Tom in the eye, and said calmly, "Thanks. That means a lot." Then I turned to Noah, squeezed his hand, and walked us back to our table, ignoring the stares that followed like shadows. Inside, I was breaking apart. But I wouldn't let them see me fall. Not then. That night, after the cake was gone and the lights dimmed, I slipped into my home office while Noah slept. That crumpled 20 still sat in my clutch. My mind played the whole scene on repeat, Tom's smug face, Camille's cackle, the room full of silence, and right then I knew they thought they'd broken me. But I was just getting started. My chest ached, not just for the company I'd built from scratch, but for the family I'd always hoped to belong to. In my mind, I heard my mom's voice, calm and steady. "You're enough, Rachel." I opened my laptop. My hands didn't shake. If anything, anger made everything crystal clear. For years, I hadn't just protected Lawson Creative, I'd been protecting myself. Every major client, Pete's Coffee, Target, Verizon, had signed contracts that tied their business to me, not the agency. Each agreement had a quiet little clause. If I ever stepped down from leadership, they could walk away without penalty. And the AI platform? The brain behind our entire success? It wasn't theirs to begin with. I'd registered it under my own company, Orion Metrics, years ago. Lawson Creative just had a licensing deal, one I could end at any moment. Just past midnight, I drafted an email to our top 20 clients. I kept it short, sharp, professional. I informed them of my immediate departure and their rights to terminate. I even attached the original contracts. No emotion. Just facts that cut like a scalpel. I hit send. And I knew what was coming. Like dominoes tipping over, one by one. Next, I logged into the Orion Metrics servers. Within minutes, I deactivated Lawson Creative's license. The software they depended on, the platform that had brought them out of the Stone Age, was no longer theirs to use. I hadn't exactly predicted betrayal. But I had planned for scenarios where I'd need to retain control of my work. I wasn't naive. By 2:15 a.m., I had a checklist open: patents, ownership contracts, internal team loyalties. All of it airtight. Tom and Camille thought they'd won. Thought they'd kicked me out of something they didn't even understand. They had no clue I'd been preparing for this fight since I was a teenager. At 3 a.m., my inbox started lighting up. Replies from clients. Confirmations. Contract terminations. One after another. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. Lawson Creative was about to find out what happens when you gamble against the person who built your foundation with her own two hands. By 9 a.m., I walked into the downtown Chicago office for the last time. My heels clicked on the tile floor like a countdown. Heads turned. People looked up from their monitors, tension already in the air. Something was coming. They felt it.my inbox was a war zone. 15 of our biggest clients were officially gone. The contracts were dust. The AI platform they depended on? Revoked at sunrise. They were flying blind. I carried a tablet with 3 documents loaded and ready to go: my resignation letter, copies of the client termination clauses, and legal proof that Orion Metrics owned the AI technology. One headed straight for the boardroom. Inside, Camille and Tom were scrambling. Camille's usually flawless curls were frizzing at the edges, her expression wild as she shoved her phone in my face. Verizon pulled out. She snapped. "What the hell did you do, Rachel?" I raised an eyebrow. My voice stayed calm. "Just getting started." Tom stepped forward, all the confidence drained out of his too-perfect suit. "Rachel, let's not rush into anything. We can figure this out," he said, his tone gentle, almost pleading. I'd never heard him speak like that before. I didn't answer. Instead, I tapped my tablet, casting the screen to the projector. First up, my resignation, effective immediately. Then came the termination clauses, signed and timestamped by the clients who were already gone. And last, ownership documentation for the AI platform, showing Lawson Creative no longer had rights to use a single line of it. "You wanted me out?" I said, locking eyes with them. "Now you've got it." Silence. Just wide eyes and the slow crumble of everything they thought they controlled. I turned and walked out without another word. As I stepped into the hallway, Camille came running after me, her voice breaking. "You can't do this, Rachel." She was still clutching her phone like it might save her. Behind her, Tom followed, but the smugness he usually wore like cologne was gone. There was just doubt. Panic. Around us, employees whispered in corners. Phones buzzed. Laptops refreshed. People were putting the pieces together in real time. The story was spreading. And it was only the beginning. Then Tom, our CFO, broke through the crowd. His face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Camden," he said, his voice tight and grim. "We've got a real crisis. Our investors are pulling out. Half the engineering team quit this morning. Without Rachel's system, we're dead in the water." I stood there motionless, letting his words hang in the air like smoke. Camille's eyes shot toward me, pleading now. "Fix it, Rachel," she said, desperate. "You owe us." I almost laughed. Owe them? After everything, after years of building their empire while they sidelined me. After Camden's little stunt at my wedding, handing me a crumpled 20 like that's all I was worth. I met Camille's stare, my voice low but razor sharp. "You stole everything I created in one night. All I did was take it back." Camden stepped forward, his voice softer now. "Rachel, we can work this out. We're still family." That word, family, hit like ice water. Family hadn't stopped him from humiliating me. It hadn't saved me from being cast aside. I thought of my mother then. Her quiet strength. Her relentless belief in me. And just like that, calm washed over me. "You made your choice," I said. "Now you live with it." And with that, I turned and walked toward the elevator. I heard Camille's sharp inhale behind me. Heard Camden's stunned silence. The doors slid shut. And, for the first time in years, I felt free. By noon, Chicago's tech world was on fire. The news had spread like a brush fire. Lawson Creative implodes. AI powerhouse loses clients overnight amid licensing war. Their stock nosedived. Twitter lit up. Analysts speculated. Reporters sniffed around for interviews. I didn't care. I was too busy setting up my new world. My new office in Fulton Market. Sleek glass, clean lines, all mine. I launched Orion Metrics at my core team. The ones who believed in me had already moved in. Developers, systems engineers, a few senior execs I trusted. They were firing up servers and finalizing contracts before we'd even ordered chairs. Pete's Coffee and Target, loyal to me, not the Lawson name, had already signed deals. By 2 p.m., Orion had closed $50 million in contracts, about a third of what Lawson Creative had been clinging to. I sat at my desk, sipping dark roast, watching their stock fall in real time on my second monitor. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. What I felt was clarity. All those years chasing Camden's approval, shouldering Camille's incompetence, it had all led here. Turns out, my worth had nothing to do with their validation. Ethan called around 3 o'clock, his voice gentle but worried. "You okay, Ratch?" I smiled, picturing his steady, kind eyes. "Better than okay." Orion wasn't just a company. It was mine. Built the right way. Built on my terms. My pace. My vision. That evening, as my team toasted our first win, I glanced at the folded $20 bill still sitting on my desk. A reminder of where I'd started and what I'd survived. Lawson Creative was crumbling. But I was building something stronger. And people were beginning to notice. 2 days later, I got a text from Camille. "Rachel, please. Just one conversation. Meet me." I stared at the message. Her tone, so different now. Gone was the smugness, the designer polish, the arrogance. There was only desperation. It was almost funny. I agreed to meet. Not because I felt sorry for her, because I was curious. We met at a quiet cafe in Logan Square, well away from the startup crowd. Camille looked different. No Louboutin heels or overpriced blazer. Just jeans, sneakers, and a faded hoodie. Her eyes were tired, her voice even more so. "I didn't know," she began, nervously fidgeting with her cup. "About the contracts. The software. Any of it. Dad we thought you'd always stay." I raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. She kept going. "Lawson Creative is collapsing. The investors are gone. The software's useless without you. Dad's falling apart. We need you back, Rachel." Her voice cracked, but all it stirred in me were old, jagged memories, like the time at Mom's funeral when Camille didn't even look at me, or the endless family dinners where Camden praised her latest flop while I sat quietly invisible. I leaned forward, voice cold. "On my wedding day, when your dad gave you my company and handed me a $20 bill, Did you think that was wrong? She flinched, eyes darting down to her tea. I didn't think, she muttered. I nodded. Exactly. You didn't think. You took what I built and laughed. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, Rachel, for family. That word again. It rang hollow now. I stood, grabbing my bag. You wanted the CEO title, Camille. Figure it out. I walked away, not angry, not victorious. Just blank. Like the last page of a book I no longer needed to read. I heard my mom's voice again. You were always enough. And for the first time, I didn't just hear it, I believed it. Over the next 2 weeks, Lawson Creative unraveled like a sweater tugged from every end. Investors vanished. Employees resigned in waves. Their clumsy attempt at rebuilding the platform was a disaster, buggy, outdated, and miles behind what I'd built. The board ousted Camden as chairman. Camille stepped down as CEO soon after. Within a month, the company filed for bankruptcy. Once a rising star, Lawson Creative became a punchline in industry blogs, a case study in arrogance. Meanwhile, Orion metrics soared. We closed deals with Nike and Microsoft, pushing our valuation to $600 million in just 3 months. My team, those sharp, loyal minds who'd followed me, worked like nothing I'd ever seen back at Lawson. We weren't just coding. We were creating. Chicago's tech press started calling me a visionary, but I wasn't chasing headlines. I was building something real. One night, Ethan and I hosted a dinner at our home in Old Town. Our kitchen was loud with laughter. My team crowded around the table with wine and stories and warmth. Later, when the house was quiet, I sat alone on the balcony with a glass of wine. The skyline glittered across the river. I thought of my mom again, how she'd read me stories about girls who shaped their own worlds. I had done it. Not for Camden. Not for Camille. For me. The pain of their betrayal? It was still there. But it had softened, no longer defining me. Just a faint scar that reminded me how far I'd come. Orion wasn't just a company. It was proof that I didn't need their approval to shine. I set my glass down. My phone buzzed. Another headline. Rachel Lawson reshapes Chicago's tech future. I smiled at the title, then turned it off. The future wasn't something I needed to read about anymore. I was building it. A few weeks later, I got an email from the University of Illinois Tech Department. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker at their Innovation Summit. The theme? Overlooked innovators. The irony hit hard. Camille had once been their golden girl. Her brief, hyped college stint had everyone convinced she was the next great tech CEO. Now, they wanted my story. I said yes. And as I stood at that podium, staring out at a packed room full of eager students, some confident, others just barely holding it together, I saw myself in them. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told them about the long nights coding to rescue Lawson Creative, about the betrayal, about the $20 bill that burned in my clutch as I walked out of my own wedding. I told them how I walked away, started over, built Orion from scratch, and turned loss into power. And then I looked them in the eye and said, when you're underestimated, let it drive you. Let it sharpen you. But never, ever let it break you. Their eyes locked on mine, some nodding, some scribbling notes like their futures depended on it. Then a student raised her hand and asked, "What kept you going?" I paused, thought of Mom. Her hand on mine, her voice steady and sure. "You're enough." Believing in myself, I said, when no one else did. And letting go of the need to prove it to the wrong people. After the talk, a young coder walked up to me. Maybe 19. Nervous smile, eyes full of grit. "Your story is mine," she whispered. "I'm gonna keep going." I smiled and handed her my card. Driving home through the quiet Chicago streets, I felt lighter. I wasn't just sharing a story anymore. I was lighting a path for others, the same way Mom once lit it for me. One evening not long after, a letter showed up in the mail. The handwriting was Camden's. Bold once, now shaky, uncertain. I didn't open it. I just slid it into the drawer next to the $20 bill he'd handed me on my wedding day. That bill used to sting. It had been a symbol of all the things I wasn't, in his eyes, Now, it was just paper. I pulled out my old scrapbook, the one I'd kept since the start. There was a photo of my first janky laptop, the original Lawson Creative Office, and the confetti-covered launch party for Orion Metrics. I took the $20 bill, smoothed it out, and slipped it into a clear sleeve next to a photo of me and Ethan on our first date, laughing, unguarded, reeled. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about honoring where I'd started and how far I'd come. Later, curled up on the couch beside Ethan, the skyline glowing outside our window, I felt a rare kind of peace. I'd built Orion Metrics into a $600 million powerhouse, not to prove Camden wrong, but to prove Mom right. Her belief in me had carried me through so much, through betrayal, through sleepless nights, through the quiet ache of being unseen. Now I stood tall, not because I won, but because I let go. The letter, the bill, the past, they didn't own me anymore. My future did. And to everyone who's been part of this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through the fire and the rebuild. If my story hit something in you, subscribe and stick with us at Revenge Ties, where every line of code, every hard-earned win, tells a story of grit, heart, and new beginnings. Keep building your path, and I'll see you at the next chapter.